All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for a few real people out there, just like you and just like me. All right, got the T-shirt and the CD here. This is The Great Divide. Really like this band. They are a country rock band. The album is called Providence. Of course it's upside down, right? The CD. But as you can see here, it matches the album artwork, which is really cool. I'm kind of an old school country rock guy. When everybody else was listening to The Long Run by the Eagles, I was listening to Under the Gun by Poco. And that was my thing for quite some time, that particular genre. And I think this band does a really nice job in recreating a very lush sound. And they do it in a way where you can hear all the instruments and there's no BS in the production. And sometimes I just want to hear some good acoustic and electric guitars blending. And I want to hear those drums and I want to hear that bass, and you get yourself a band at that point. Speaking of good music to listen to, check out Modern Retro Radio. It's a really cool internet radio station. Modern Retro Radio, programmed by people who still care about music and would like you to listen to either new stuff by new artists that kind of mix and relate, or new stuff by classic artists. Of course, in that particular category, most of today's radio just ignores it, like the new Journey album, a number of different albums out there that they are currently playing that no one else is bothering to play. All right, so Stevie Nicks is in the news again regarding her relationship with Christine McVie, and I find it kind of fascinating based on what I know, what Christine McVie said last June, so less than a year ago. And of course, Christine McVie passed away, and everybody was kind of shocked. And apparently Stevie Nicks is still struggling with this. She continues to insist, hey, Christine McVie was my best friend. And I'm thinking, best friends, they talk on the phone, they check in on each other, especially when you get up there. And 78 is how old Christine McVie was when she passed away. So again, it's not that I'm not buying what Stevie Nicks is selling here, but she's talking about her relationship with Christine McVie, and she's thanking Taylor Swift for the song You're on Your Own, Kid, because that's the sadness that she feels. You know, I'm not saying she's exploiting Christine McVie's death here, but it's like, usually people will grieve privately, okay? But Stevie Nicks does everything in a very public way. And, you know, she writes poems for Vladimir Putin. Really strange that she would write a poem, because she knows nothing about foreign policy. She knows nothing about world affairs. She has no idea what started or precipitated the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, but she interjected herself in there because the prevailing narrative was there for her, and she wanted to jump into that stream. A couple of years ago, she was hanging out with Harry Styles, the guy from One Direction. Now, Harry did change direction. One Direction kind of was going in one direction, and Harry Styles went in another direction, and he became kind of legitimate. And Stevie Nicks was like, oh, I love this guy. And they were hanging out together. A little bit creepy, right? Age difference. You know, people ask me, what do you think of Robert Plant and Alison Krauss? The music is pretty good. But seeing them together just kind of creeps me out. It just does. I'm sorry. And there are probably other instances where you see two people standing next to each other. You've got the pristine Alison Krauss, and you've got, you know, the Cowardly Lion next to her, and you're just like, the older Cowardly Lion. standing next to her, and it's just a little freaky, you know? Stevie Nicks, kind of an old woman. Sorry, Stevie Nicks, just Harry Styles. Anyway, that's another video. But I figured I'd weigh in here because it's Stevie and her relevance. Everybody in this world wants to be relevant. They want to continue to interject themselves, and it's okay to not. Christine McVie was exactly the opposite. She went back to the UK and she was just living a quiet life, and she was asked a few questions last year. And in light of what Stevie Nicks is saying about her relationship with Christine McVie, I think Christine had a slightly different perspective on this. First of all, the other day, I mentioned that her wish was that Fleetwood Mac would get back together. Or if they did get back together, it would be with Lindsey Buckingham. And I don't think Stevie Nicks is into that, because these guys could be doing a tribute tour right now with those 4 members from the Rumors era. John McVie, who apparently wants to spend time on his boat. Mick Fleetwood, who's not sure. He might want to do something. He's going to try to keep busy. And Stevie Nicks, who's been touring but canceling tour dates because of floating particles and protocols and so forth. I think she had some gigs with Billy Joel that were abruptly canceled. I thought that was kind of a strange pairing as well, but I know it's probably the same demographic that Fleetwood Mac, Billy Joel, definitely, for sure, Stevie Nicks. So it's not a bad pairing. It's just kind of interesting because I don't think those two really spent a lot of time working together back in the old days. In any event, Christine McVie did have some interesting things to say last June, not even a year ago. So this article, which I think People magazine picked up, said the singer and keyboardist told Rolling Stone that Fleetwood Mac kind of broke up following their most recent tour, which ended in 2019 after nearly 100 shows. She went on to say, "I don't know, it's impossible to say. We might get back together, but I just couldn't say for sure." Now, at one point in another article, Christine McVie said, "Yeah, I'm getting a little bit old for this stuff." And, I hate to throw stones here, but Christine was having some vocal issues during that last tour. And you can attribute that to aging. You can't say that she was off her game or anything like that, but there was a real difference with her singing as compared to even just a couple of years prior to that when she worked with Lindsey Buckingham on what should have been a Fleetwood Mac album, turned out to be Buckingham McVie, which is an ironic title since there was at one point a Buckingham Nicks. That must have really ticked Stevie Nicks off. But of course, they did remain friends through that, and Christine was invited back, and the band recruited Neil Finn and Mike Campbell. But here's the part of this that I think is very interesting. Though McVie and Nicks and John McVie, Mick Fleetwood and Buckingham have made music together for more than 50 years, she said, Christine, that when not on tour, she and Nicks don't actually speak all that often. And while that's not to say there's any bad blood between the two, McVie said that for now, Fleetwood Mac, as we know it, just doesn't exist. And she goes on, "I don't communicate with Stevie. When we were on the last tour, we did a lot. We always sat next to each other on the plane, and we got on really well. But since the band broke up, I've not been speaking to her at all." Whoa. Okay, well, that throws a wrench in the best friend narrative that's being created by Stevie Nicks. Now, she went on. She said, should we reunite? If we do, McVie said she'd hope that Buckingham would join them. I'd always want Lindsey back, she said. He's the best. He's the best. Neil and Mike, that's Neil Finn and Mike Campbell, were such a cheerful couple. But Lindsey was missed. Lindsey was missed. I'm sure he was missed not only by the band, but by the fans. Buckingham, 72, was kicked out of Fleetwood Mac in 2018 over what he claimed was an ultimatum given by Nicks to the rest of the group. He told People magazine that McVie later texted him saying, "I'm really sorry I didn't stand up for you." Wow. Nicks, 74, has disputed Buckingham's account, calling it revisionist history. Oh, man. There's no way that's revisionist history. There's no way. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, she was upset. She was mad at the Music Cares thing that happened, and there was smirking and joking behind the scenes because anytime Stevie Nicks gives a speech, it goes on and on and on. And, you know, these guys were signaling to, hey, could you wrap it up? Could you, you know, doing this like, okay, all right, let's hurry it up, or whatever the signal was from the peanut gallery. And according to Buckingham and McVie and probably even Mick Fleetwood, they were just doing what they always do. You know, they were clowning around, and they know Stevie and they know she's long-winded, and they just assumed that eventually she'd be over with her speech and they'd all probably have a good laugh about it. But that was the last straw. That was the last straw for Stevie Nicks, and that was the reason to break up Fleetwood Mac. So in any event, Christine McVie says, hey, I wasn't talking to her at all. Stevie Nicks says, she was my best friend. Don't you call your best friend and say, hey, best friend, how are you? You're 78 years old. We're just checking in to see if you're okay, right? I mean, that would be the common sense thing to do, especially, you know, if you are concerned about your best friend and they're 78 years old. And I think Christine McVie was living alone, or I don't know, did she remarry? I don't remember any of this stuff. She might have remarried. The point is, she didn't call to find out how Christine was. And you could say vice versa, but Christine McVie nowhere in this article says, you know, Stevie Nicks is my best friend. She didn't say that at all. I mean, she said, hey, we got along pretty well on the airplane. That's a big difference between my soulmate, my best friend. See, Stevie Nicks has never been married. And I don't know, folks. There's something going on there as to why that is. And it's kind of a shame. And we know about Stevie Nicks and her history with Don Henley and something that happened between them. And anyway, I don't want to do another video on that topic because I know it's controversial. People are going to get mad at me for talking about what Christine, or actually Stevie and Don, decided to do in the situation that they were in. And, you know, it's a decision, I guess, that Stevie Nicks says saved Fleetwood Mac. Because there would be no Fleetwood Mac without the decision that herself and Don Henley made, which is just... it's the most selfish thing I think I've ever heard in my life. All right. Before I go off on this tangent, start to remember more details about that, time to shut it down. Stay in your lane, dude. Here's, again, The Great Divide and their album about the United States. It's called Providence. No, I'm just kidding. It's the name of the band, The Great Divide. All right, Providence. We all need a little bit of God in our lives. At least I think I do. But yeah, you can check that out. Don't forget to also listen to Modern Retro Radio. You won't be disappointed. It's interesting. Thousands of people are flocking to the site, which is interesting because I'm not getting thousands and thousands of views on my video. If I can get 1,000 or 2,000, it's like a miracle. So please subscribe to the channel. Please think about supporting me via Patreon, YouTube memberships, real easy way to do $2.99 a month. And it's helpful. We have to work against the algorithm, which is pushing the channel down. And the stuff about the comments, I'm really tired of hearing about it. Do yourself a favor. Don't leave messages about the comments being off. All right. I've addressed this a gazillion times. And if you want to have a conversation about it with me, I'm on Truth Social. I'm also on Patreon. You can pay $1 and we can have a great conversation back and forth. Because that's the only way I'm going to be able to sustain what I've been doing, is if people step up and help out. I've also got a little podcast going on over on Make America Good Again. It's a brand new podcast. I'm sorry, I'm not showing my face during the podcast. It is audio only, but I think it's pretty interesting. I address politics, culture, all the things that you're not supposed to talk about, religion, and big announcement today. I think, was it Ron DeSantis is going to be running for president? So I might address that on the podcast. You'll have to tune in and find out. I will link that in the description as well. And until we do this again, or at least I do it again and you watch me do it again, thanks for being here. God bless, and I'll talk to you soon.